who we've been in the past, but we work to try to build a future life for ourselves as well, to do work that may need to happen in the world. So, like for example, the Grand Commander that I was my mentor for a long time was a man by the name of Dr. Onslow Wilson, and he was a wonderful guy. But he before he passed away, he was planning on reincarnating in China his next life, so that he could help out with Chinese-U.S. relations going in the future. So that's kind of the way of thinking. It's a different way of thinking from how most people think about their journey in their life, but it's very much proactive. Is from a Templar perspective, is understanding not only who we've been, but what work we need to do, not only this life, but in our next life, in order to advance the process of helping humanity wake up.
So, is there an active conscious, not just thought, but practice and attempt to manipulate your future reincarnation, your future lives, let's say, at least from the standpoint of where we are now, through the Templar Order? And is that what is giving the Order such staying permanence? If I'm going to draw this, if I'm going to take all this in and say that this is, how it works, it would make sense that you could, start an order thousands, or not necessarily thousands, but close to 1,000 years ago, roughly, and keep it going.
Once you've been initiated into the order too, that sticks with you, and you're always kind of but we can back it up too from biblical sources. I mean, like a good example. I mean, most people, when they hear being born again in Christianity, they think of something else, but who's to say that wasn't about being born again, reincarnating? I mean,
right.
There's a great passage, I can't remember the exact passage in the New Testament, where the disciples go to Jesus and they say, Jesus, the people are saying that the prophet Elias has come back. And Jesus says, well, he has come back, but the majority of people don't recognize him yet. And it says, then the disciples understood he was speaking of John the Baptist. Well, we know who John the Baptist's parents were. So if Elias is coming back as John the Baptist, that means he's reincarnating as John the Baptist. So, it's right there in the Bible. It's just people aren't conditioned to looking at it that way. But from a Templar perspective, that's very much the way it is. And in fact, oftentimes our leadership within the Templar Order is selected by people who were leaders within the Order previously that, we're able to recognize. We have ways of recognizing and welcoming them back and getting them the tools that they need to continue the work. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's, if I'm not mistaken, I believe, the Dalai Lama is one of those other instances where that is considered to be the case, right? They know how to find the next incarnation, and so...
Yeah, we do a similar thing in the Templar Order. Yeah.
Okay. One of the most interesting things right now is how the word the deep state and the other forces at B have become to be really, really well known. Let's say more so talked about than they ever have. And with the knowledge the Templars have, and that you're describing, it's not a far stretch to say that it would be obvious that any sort of intelligence agency that's been around for a while and a host of governments or anyone in power would have similar knowledge. And so given that the Templars had this interesting relationship with the church and Rome, and throughout history, what role now does this play? Is there a meshing? Is there tension between the order and say, I don't know, just choose any 3-letter agency from the U.S.?
Well,
how does that work?
It's interesting. I mean, sometimes, we do have members who are involved in some of those 3-letter agencies. We also have members who are involved in the leadership in the Roman Church. But in general,
right,
the order has sought to exist independent of all of that. And we believe that that the Spirit of God is within everybody, and or sometimes we refer to it as the sacred flame is within everybody, and it just gets really buried, and people don't realize it's there. So part of the Templar work is about finding who you really are, what your real connection is with this greater consciousness. And it's, for the most part, 3-letter agencies exist as a form of control, to keep people controlled to a particular system. What I was saying is that oftentimes 3-letter agencies are they're in the business of control, to try to keep people under control and to keep systems in place that support the bigger whatever, the country itself, but more importantly the businesses and the power of the country. As Templars, we're not as concerned about that. We're more concerned about control over oneself and being able to harness our greatest potential, and part of that lies in a greater intelligence, which is this universal consciousness, which collective consciousness, which Templars refer to as the Christos, or the Christ. They recognize that that Jesus, for example, was speaking as the Christ, as the universal consciousness. So it wasn't, Christ wasn't his last name. It was that the Christos was the universal consciousness that we can all access, that we are it's inherently within us. We just have to be awakened to it. And in so doing, then that's where real intelligence comes from, because it's universal consciousness. By tapping into that, you can pretty much see or hear or understand anything that you need to. But it's just getting to that point of being able to tap into it.
Right. And I mean, that can take years or sometimes not so long, right? I mean, there are stories of people having, I don't want to necessarily say enlightenment, but at least it can be a life's work, or if I understand this right, people can reach a certain level and fall off, and go backwards or regress, and so the entire spectrum of how the Templars had come about and continue their work was what fascinated me, just in general, to even want to read about it. Not only just the structure, just for how you can manage this. I mean, it's truly an empire of sorts, and one that has to be very careful about who its friends are and how it continues to grow, right? And having to go into hiding so many times throughout history. Which takes us to the one thing that everybody knows we have to touch on, which is the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
And I don't know where. I've avoided looking into this my entire life, truly, because I see so many different ways of going about this. But maybe you can shed some light into what the superficial version is, and then maybe what the true potential nature of it actually is.
Well, most people, when they hear the Holy Grail, they think of the cup of Jesus at the Last Supper. That's usually what they think of. I mean, it's a good fitting symbol for it, but really, from a Templar standpoint, what the Grail is it's the connecting point between our individual consciousness and the consciousness of the Creator, right? It's that meeting point between the two, and in that space is where what we refer to as gnosis can take place, or divine revelatory knowledge. And so this is one of the aspects of it. Now, some of the other aspects that are associated with the Grail have to do with alchemy. And sometimes the Grail is depicted as an emerald or an emerald chalice. And this is really alluding to the Hermetic teachings of associated with something known as the Emerald Tablet of Hermes. And what the Emerald Tablet of Hermes talks about is, it says, as above, so below. And it's giving instructions for how to create something known as the Philosopher's Stone. And so the Philosopher's Stone in alchemy is something that raises consciousness, heals the body, and raises consciousness, heals the body, and can transmute base metals into gold, basically. And so this is also one aspect of the Grail. Is this Philosopher's Stone, this secret magical item that can bring about good things in your life. So that's one aspect of the Grail as well. Another aspect of the Grail is usually associated with some would say that when it's referred to as the Sangreal, that it has to do with the bloodline of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. This idea that Jesus and Mary Magdalene were married, they had children, and that there was an entire lineage that came out of them. And what was significant about this bloodline had less to do with, it's not like their blood had like some sort of magical quality to it or anything. What it had to do with is a tradition being passed down through the family line of what would be argued the true teachings of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, which is really of more of a Gnostic type of belief system. When I say Gnostic, the Gnostics believed that anybody through their own efforts could attune with that greater consciousness of God. And you didn't need the intermediary of the priest in order to do it. Right? Well, that's bad business for the Roman Church. But that was the true teachings according to this bloodline, and so they perpetuated that idea. And the Templars are certainly a part of that. Templars have people of all backgrounds, all faiths, all nationalities, all races, but there is a core belief that anybody through their own effort could attain this divine revelatory knowledge known as gnosis. And this is really what the Grail is about. And the quest for the Grail. Because the quest for the Grail is about finding that element that restores the wasteland. In the Grail legends, everything kind of goes to crap. According to the stories, there's a king, and he gets wounded, and as he gets wounded, the land becomes wounded, because there's this relationship between as within, so without, and only the Grail can heal that. And so that wasteland is both a metaphor for the chaos of our lives and the ruin of our lives when we're not in harmony with the greater consciousness. But it's also it's actually I guess it's not just a metaphor; it's an actual thing too, right? When we're out of line with ourselves, when we're out of balance, we do things in the world that lead to more problems, right? Yeah, I mean, just look at our environmental disasters that we have going on right now. I mean, they come from, nobody's trying to cause environmental disaster, but people aren't awake as to what they're doing. And the result is, that's what happens, and it comes back and hurts us. So it's all about becoming more awake, and understanding our connection with the universe.
And there's it's interesting because I spent a lot of time reading about secret societies and their roles in history, and one other group definitely comes up at least as much as the Templars, if not more, which is the Freemasons.
Sure.
And I know, I'm not sure necessarily, having never really gone quite too deep in either of the societies or the orders, but is there some overlap between the two, or is there some sort of connection there? Because that's what I seem to be getting on the outside, but I don't really know.
Yeah, there is, and we can look at it from a historical standpoint. So one of the things that happened is when the Templar Order was at its height, and we're talking about in the 1200s of our current era, one of the things that they were responsible for was bringing knowledge over from the Middle East in particular, but also other places like India and Africa, different places they've traveled. And they collected all of the wisdom from all the different groups that they were meeting, and they brought that back to Europe, and they built these Gothic cathedrals, and they tried to preserve the knowledge on these cathedrals. But in order to do that, they had to have a whole group of stonemasons within the Templar Order, right? And part of the knowledge that they brought back had to do with sacred geometry, sacred architecture. They had to know metallurgy in order to make the stained glass windows with metallic oxides. So there was an alchemical knowledge there. But ultimately, when the Templar Order was suppressed in 1307, when the Pope Clement V and Philip the Fair of France, King Philip the Fair of France, engaged in a secret plot to destroy the Templar Order in order to try to steal its riches and that type of thing, the Templar Order had to go underground. And one of the best places that they were able to hide was within stonemason guilds. So they had already been building all these cathedrals and these temples all over Europe. So, and back then, one of the values of the stonemason guild is stonemasons were actually allowed to travel between kingdoms, whereas most people weren't allowed to. So this gave the Templar Order a perfect cover to be able to hide their membership and to be able to travel freely throughout the different kingdoms of Europe. Now, what happened then is this operative art of stonemasonry eventually entered, because I would say by the late 1500s, early 1600s, these operative stonemason guilds began to, especially the ones that had the Templars in them, they were passing on this secret knowledge and these secret philosophies, and they incorporated it into their practice. And so, again, by the late 1500s, early 1600s, these operative stonemason guilds became what they call speculative Freemasonry, where it was people would join it not because they knew how to build a building, but because they were looking for the philosophical knowledge that had been preserved by the Templars that was being passed down to this people. And then eventually it became what's known as Freemasonry. And Freemasonry started adding degrees to the day around the world. They all pulled their Templar degrees because
What are the stages you guys have? I mean, what language are they studying? Many old organizations have books or conduct or I would imagine if the Templars have obviously your own records and your own thing, then we talk about hermetic, and we're going to be verification here, and here has played a role. Where do you source all of the Templar knowledge?
well, you look at ancient texts for sure. One of the things that the order was known for early on was when they went down into the Holy Land in particular, is they were finding other gospels or other gospels that were standard. So they were apocryphal texts, and they were Kabbalistic texts, that were in Hebrew or Aramaic or sometimes in Greek. As they became exposed to this, they realized that these sacred texts could be interpreted in a lot of different ways because the way they were was political inside. So I think this is part of the reason why the Templar Order was suppressed as well, because they were open to their way of looking at things. So, and they had people of other faiths who joined the Templar Order. They had Jews, and Muslims, and they had Druids, and they had Christian forces. People of the Coptic, the Celtic Church of Ireland and England. They also had Gnostic churches with the Albertines and other organized how they celebrate that. Ultimately, the Templar Order was always very welcome to that. And sometimes it's odd established. To the Templars, the sacred flame, you're connected with God is within you, always. So it doesn't matter where you put credit. You could go into a Hindu temple, you could go into a Buddhist temple, you could go to a Catholic temple. It doesn't matter because your connection with that greater mystery is within you. So you can say anything. You can celebrate that mystery wherever it is. Because every religion is to have an experience with it. Let's keep celebrating.
Conversation, my own search, my own internal search, and I enjoy that. I think one becomes better for it when it's not better at the same time. I think, and not having an interview, like you said, bad for business with the Catholic Church, good for the individual, better person. The first thing is, what is the how does that work? There's no open track, guys and just as a follow-up to that, which is not my last question though, is the list of Templars secret? Are the members entirely unknown, or there's some aware and out and some not? How does that work?
We tend to, if someone wants to come out and identify themselves as a Templar, they're welcome to. But otherwise, we keep it secret. We keep their membership secret because it's their own journey, and it's not really our place to go tell the world, hey, so and so's a Templar. I mean, oftentimes after someone passes away, it comes out like, oh yeah, they were a part of this, but
I see.
But we tend to keep it secret unless someone outs themselves, And we do have membership in all walks of life, everything from athletes to music producers, to politicians, to movie makers, to you name it, artists. The list goes on and on. But they're all, the one thing that everybody has in common is they're all striving to better themselves, to become fully awake to who they really are, and to help to wake up the rest of the world and make the world a better place if they can. So Templars believe in absolute freedom, and that they believe that people have God-given rights, to be able to freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, freedom to protect yourself, all the things that are described in the United States Bill of Rights are fundamental ideas to Templars, and that we believe that people need this freedom because that's the only way you learn, right?
Mhm.
If someone's just telling you how to think, you're not really learning anything. You're just a parrot, like you're just repeating what someone else has told you to think. I mean, you haven't really learned anything. So we need the freedom to do that. And as far as, we don't really recruit membership, but we do exist in different forms around the world. And we have, usually when somebody is drawn to this Templar work, they find us, and we get them going, with what they need to. We do have pre-study bodies, for example, the Templar Collegia, which is, if you go to www.templarcollegia.org, you can sign up for a pre-study body, to start the Templar work. And that is open to men and women. And and it's, people who do that they're given study materials, they're given the ability to attend meetings with other Templars, whether in person or even virtually. And we do have gatherings, once a year, worldwide gatherings, where Templars from around the world come and can meet each other, where we do lectures, and we do seminars, demonstrations, and we perform our initiation ceremonies during those times. So yeah, so it's exciting stuff.
Complex.
Yeah.
And as a last question, I spoke to a man named Andrew Bustamante, who is a former CIA operative, and jokingly, I asked him about the secrets that he has to, because he mentioned, what the CIA does is not necessarily a secret.
Right.
The operatives, the things, the way, their methods are not secret. What is secret is what they find out using their tactics
Sure.
and strategies and et cetera. And so my question to you is, and sorry, he finished up that his monologue by saying the things that he had become privy to would shock you, would turn your world upside down.
Yeah.
Do you feel that the Templars hold a similar set of knowledge that would turn someone's head upside down if they were to, catch the worldview that, you guys might have?
Definitely. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I tell people all the time, I'll take them to see certain things or to experience certain things, and you're never the same person afterwards as you were when you first went into it.
Yeah.
And we try to get people as prepared as possible, but it's kind of like, waking up to the Matrix, and realizing you're living in the Matrix, and that everybody's hopelessly asleep, and you're finding yourself awake, and you need to help wake up other people, and it's and some of that waking involves an understanding of how the world really works, but also understanding aspects of history that is maybe largely suppressed, and then also waking up to our own powers. I mean, first time you ever consciously astrally project, that's a big wake-up call,
Totally.
Yeah, as one example of many. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Listen, Tim, it's been a pleasure.